This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some big updates to share with you. Today is the deadline to apply for the $500 checks. We'll also go over the new $700 stimulus checks and the $250 baby formula check proposal. Also, a lot of Americans are asking, with all the money going to Ukraine, why not have that $40 billion help out Americans? Well, that question was asked to a Republican senator. I'll play the video clip of his response. Also, I'll give you the perspective of inflation from the Democrat and Republican perspectives, and what is going on with Joe Manchin and the Build Back Better, and his own coal miners in West Virginia pressing him to pass the Build Back Better. I'll give you some other important updates as well. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below. So Rand Paul blocks passage of $40 billion Ukraine aid package. So this $40 billion is supposed to go to Ukraine to help out. This is after, I think, about $7 billion or something like that has already been sent to Ukraine. And a lot of Americans are wondering, why is all this money going to Ukraine, and why not helping out Americans that are struggling in America itself? Well, Rand Paul basically said the same thing, but one of the Republican senators, his colleagues, Lindsey Graham, thinks that the money should go to Ukraine. But the big question is, why not have the money go to struggling Americans? Take a look at his response to that question here.
Let's turn to Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina. Senator, you know how we feel about this. We want to help Ukraine, obviously. But it goes out the door so fast. Like, everything gets done for Ukraine like this, like that. Billions out the door like this. And meanwhile, Americans are looking around like, hey, Congress, what about us? Do you feel that?
Hey, I totally get it. Here's the problem with Ukraine. They run out of money in terms of buying weapons, I think, at the middle of May. So the Ukrainian army is delivering a whoop-ass on the Russian army. They're about to run out of ammunition. They're not asking for any soldiers. They're not asking for us to take over the skies anymore. They're just asking for weapons.
But we're getting our asses whooped here, Senator. You know that. Come on.
Yeah.
And we should have gotten weaponry out to them a year ago when we saw the buildup coming.
Oh, boy. Amen. Common sense tells you that Putin's not going to stop in Ukraine. Common sense tells you he was going to invade. Well, the people running the border are also the ones trying to prevent Putin from going into Ukraine. If I thought pulling the plug on Ukraine would make any problem better here, I would entertain it. But our problems here don't get better by allowing Putin to win in Ukraine because he won't stop.
Yeah, but can't we do both, Senator?
We actually can stop.
Can't we do fast track for America?
Totally.
Everything's fast track for overseas, but can we fast track it here?
You know, listen, I'm with you. Why don't we fast track changing our laws at the border? Why don't we fast track oil and gas, right? Why don't we drill for oil and gas that we own? Listen, we don't have the Congress as Republicans. Everything you say, I agree with. Listen, you understand the importance of getting Putin stopped in Ukraine because he's going to keep going. China will take Taiwan, but if the Ukrainian military can stop him in the Ukraine without any American soldiers, that's a great day for freedom. That's a great day for America. But I am with you. I wish we would do more on the energy front. Does it make any sense to shut down oil and gas drilling in America and be more dependent on Russia and Iran? It makes absolutely no sense. But here's what I want to tell your listeners. If we can win in Ukraine, and I think we can stop Putin, the world gets better overnight. If he takes Ukraine, he doesn't get prosecuted as a war criminal, he'll keep going. He wants to rewrite the map of Europe. And China is just waiting to see what to do with Taiwan. All the chips in the world for our computer high-tech industry comes from Taiwan. So there's a lot at stake here, but I can't argue with. I'm not trying to argue with you that we should be doing more here at home. No, we should have rational border policies. We don't.
We are right.
So what are your thoughts on that? Should the money go to Ukraine? Should it go to Americans? Should there be stimulus checks created out of it? So let me know your thoughts on all that down in the comments below. So U.S. money given to Ukraine compared to stimulus checks and border security. So just to give some perspective, how much money is going to Ukraine, how much was for stimulus checks and border security. So I'll go over stimulus checks later on, but I just want to go over a few points of this article. So basically, that bill is going to be $40 billion. And how does that relate to, so basically there was around $7.2 billion in military aid, $4.3 billion in humanitarian aid that went to Ukraine since March, and that's $13.6 billion so far in Ukraine. and this bill would make it an extra 39.8 billion, round up to 40 billion, and which means that total Ukraine would get around 53.4 billion. In terms of stimulus checks, it's kind of different numbers there. So $800 billion went for stimulus checks, for all three stimulus checks in 2020 to 2021. So that's $800 billion for the federal stimulus checks for first, second, and third. And then border security has allotted $54 billion for DHS, and then the budgetary authority of more than $87 billion. So stimulus checks definitely got the lion's share of the money, and I would say border security is almost close to the aid that would go to Ukraine. Brings up big questions. What are your thoughts on all of that? Also, some ironic news here. Coal miners press Manchin to back reconciliation bill to extend black lung funding. So Joe Manchin from West Virginia, a lot of coal mines there. He still supports the coal mine industry. He makes money from coal mines, or one coal mine company makes $500,000 a year. And the irony here is that there are coal miners, basically 1 in 5 coal miners get black lung disease, which is a disease that they don't have a cure for. And these coal miners are pressing Joe Manchin to pass the bill back better because it will help fund and aid those who do have black lung disease. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't think that's going to change Joe Manchin's mind, though. And then when we come to inflation, rising prices, so as inflation causes grocery prices to skyrocket, experts says it could get worse. So keep hearing this week after week, that prices are already high, and doesn't seem like they're going to get any better. They just keep getting worse, which is very unfortunate. But I want to give you the news, show you the headlines and all that, and what the experts are saying. So the White House gets boxed in on inflation. No matter how hard President Biden, the White House, the Democrats try to deflect blame for inflation, it just keeps coming back to the Democrats. Take a look at what the Democrats' perspective is on inflation. Then I'll give you the Republican perspective after that.
Go to California Democratic Congressman Rokana on all of that. Congressman, always great to see you. I was thinking also, some of the books, you're very thoughtful when you address some of these big issues, but in Dignity in a Digital Age, making tech work for all of us, one of the things you get into is making companies more responsive to the needs of people. Do you believe, I know that book was not about all companies, but what Nancy Pelosi is saying, that this is the Putin inflation, the Putin energy hike. Do you believe that that's solely the Putin war hike?
No, I mean, I think obviously it's more complex than that. I think Putin's war has exacerbated it, but you basically
is that a talking point? Kind of, I always ask you, because you seem to be your own man in this stuff, and I always wonder, when I hear more and more Democrats saying that, and it's almost on cue, I'm beginning to wonder if it's part of a strategy. Blame it on Putin, blame it on Putin, blame it on Putin.
I don't think that's going to work. I mean, we can say that Putin has made it worse, but look, it's too much money chasing too few goods, and partly it's a supply chain disruption, partly it's too much money chasing production that has gone down, and I think the pandemic is to blame. I think it's much more complex than that, but what I do think we need to do is have far more aggressive government intervention. One idea, you may not agree with this, Neil, but President Reagan and President Roosevelt actually had the government buy up at the low points food and then sell it back to Americans at a low price. And that is something President Reagan did with cheese. FDR did it with many goods. I think we need to do something bold like that that's actually going to bring prices down. I mean, look, I was in my district, Maria, Lupa, who was a grocery store owner. She's saying milk is up 50%. Tortillas are up 24%. Eggs are up 50%. This is a real issue.
So it's not a transitory issue to you, and to give you credit, when this was going on early, you had your concerns and doubts about that. But the longer it seems the administration, Congressman, sticks to that, or that it's that it has nothing to do with this, isn't that a fatal move for the president and the party? Do you fear that it boomerangs and he just looks out of touch?
Yeah, I think we have to be straight with people. We need to say inflation is a real threat. It's an emergency. We need to take bold actions to deal with it. Call out the National Guard on transportation. Have the government intervene, as I suggested, to try to buy at low prices and then supply to Americans.
No, that's not a crazy idea, and I didn't mean to challenge that. I think I remember, prior presidents doing that sort of thing. Old enough to remember Reagan, FDR. This might shock you. I'm not old enough to remember that, but you're quite right. I am curious about this, though, that if you can't acknowledge a problem or your role in the problem, doesn't it invariably get back to never solving the problem then? Because you're not responsible for any of it. I'm not blaming the president for all of this, but a lot of this was set in motion long before Vladimir Putin. You could say it came after the whole bust of the whole COVID experience and the boom that would inevitably follow. But to not take ownership of some of that, even getting it wrong on how long this would last, don't you think that pisses people off?
I think we should be honest. I think we should say it's complex. As you point out, part of it was COVID. Part of it is that we offshored too much production in this country and we were too dependent on supply chains. Part of it was the government spending, both under Trump and President Biden, which I still support because it helped get us out of a very difficult economic situation.
But are you for more spending then, Congressman? Because some would interpret that and say, well, you're going to take a bad thing and make it worse.
Well, I'm certainly not for more right now deficit spending, because if you pay for something, it's non-inflationary. But I'm not for, at this moment, more deficit spending that would increase excess demand. But I think we have to be honest with people, first by saying, yes, inflation is real. Yes, it's hurting folks. This is not theoretical, Neil. I mean, in my district, people are complaining we don't have baby formula. I mean, one idea is let's have massive production where you can produce baby formula safely, or let's buy it from Europe and sell here. I guess, look, people don't expect miracles, but they expect the government to understand the problem and to be as bold as we can to try to tackle it. And I think that's what the Democrats need to do headed into the midterms and to solve people's real concerns.
What are your thoughts on what Representative Rokana said? To be honest, he said that inflation was there. He kind of went against the Democrat talking points, which is respectable. He said where it came from, what could potentially be done about it. It is, I think he basically said it was President Biden's fault or the administration's fault. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? And then Biden promotes efforts to address inflation as Republicans make it a point of attack. So there's just no escaping that inflation is felt by everybody, and Republicans blaming President Biden. What are your thoughts on that? We'll take a look at this perspective right here from the Republicans and some numbers to back it up.
Meanwhile, what appears to be gaining steam here is, who's responsible for the current economy? And while this is, President Biden's out there on the stump. Call for four guys. He's blamed just about everybody. And we can show you the list now. Putin's war in Ukraine, which probably has a role in it. It's transitory. That was used. COVID, which is partly to blame. Republican policies. You got greedy corporations. Computer chips aren't there. Climate change. Federal Reserve. On it goes. You write today that Biden casts himself as a champion of lower inflation rates. Here's the subheader on your piece. He blamed everyone from Putin to the Fed for high prices, but voters won't buy it. Why will they not buy it? Why can he not defend and sell his case and position on that?
Well, two things. One is we know the inflation started last year, long before Putin, and we know where it started. We know that it started because we had a number of economists, including Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary, Larry Summers, say if you pass the American Rescue Plan with $1.9 trillion, it's going to set off inflation that we haven't seen in a generation. Remember, in January of 2021, when Biden comes in, inflation is under 2%. And today it is 8.3%. And what happened is the classic definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. And what happened with that American Rescue Plan was we dumped $2 trillion into the economy, pumping up demand, while putting too much money out there and it chased too few goods, and that's the classic definition of exactly what happened. People get that on a level. They think that when you depreciate the currency and you spend too much money you don't have, that something bad is going to happen. And we see it in the polls. President Biden's approval on the economy, 36%. Disapproval, 61. On inflation, 28, and disapproval, 67. Those are very strong numbers. And the problem for the president is that independents, the swing voters who are going to decide the 2022 election, think a lot more like Republicans than they do Democrats. 68% of Democrats approve of the president's handling of the economy, but only 9% of Republicans and 30% of independents. On inflation, think about this. Only 54% of Democrats approve of it. Barely a majority of Democrats approve of his handling of inflation. Only 7% of Republicans and only 23% of independents. That's why the president's in deep trouble on it, and why that message of it ain't my fault, it's the Federal Reserve, it's Ukraine, it's the pandemic, it's blah, 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 blah. People are going to say, no, you're the guy in charge. You're supposed to solve the problem. And you're supposed to have an answer to solve it.
That last point on this, if you listened to Maria 20 minutes ago, what's starting to settle in here now, the economists are saying, the inflation number, maybe you can make the argument that it's peaking in some areas, but it's not over and it's not done with. And the issue there is that inflation could stick with us through the remainder of this year. And you think about how that could arrange the American economy. And when you're the sitting president, that's a tough thing to fight when that tide's rolling in. Carl, thank you so much. We'll talk to you later in the week.
You bet.
Right? Carl Rove in Austin.
So what are your thoughts on whose fault it is with inflation? Doesn't really matter whose fault it is. We're in it and things need to get done. Do you think under a different president, things would be different in terms of inflation? Or was this, since almost all the countries around the world, global inflation is happening, that it was inevitable regardless of the president, regardless of the administration? What are your thoughts on all of that? So baby formula shortage costing parents, saying it's a desperate situation for many families. It is really scary. So nationwide baby formula shortage has escalated. Parents have been confronted with familiar problems seen throughout the pandemic: purchase restrictions, hoarding, and price gouging. So yeah, a lot of stores running out of it. And then in this article here, with formula shortages at dire levels, it's time for baby stimulus checks. So offering $250 per month until baby formula shortage eases would literally save infant lives. So that's a proposal of this article. Said here, I'm going to get the number. Yeah, so on eBay, baby formula was going for $120 for baby formula, which is crazy. That's nuts. And then basically the way that this proposal will work out, a first response from the government then should be to provide funds to parents with infants. Consider it a formula rebate, a baby stimulus, whatever works, offering, say, $250 per month until the formula shortage eases would literally save infant lives. There are only around 3.5 million children under the age of 1 in the U.S. compared to the pandemic stimulus checks or gas rebate plans. This isn't a bank breaker. So, what are your thoughts on that? Baby stimulus, baby formula rebate checks. Is this a good idea? It's getting really bad. Doesn't seem to be getting any better. Doesn't seem like they have a solution for this, at least long term. And I'm sure a lot of parents are really worried and scared about this. Let me know your thoughts on that. And then in terms of other stimulus news, so new tax refunds up to $500 to start going out this week. Check if you're getting cash. So this is going out in Georgia. They had a $3.8 billion surplus, and they are sending out checks. So single filers to get up to $250 back, and head of household filers to get $375, and then married couples to get $500 checks. And I guess the governor, Brian Kemp of Georgia, announced on May 11th the revenue was going to start issuing checks. So looks like checks are going out to Georgians And then for stimulus check 2022, Americans eligible for $700 in cash relief, see if your state is offering rebates. So this is going out to New Jersey, and this is part of the Anchor program, basically for homeowners who are eligible to receive an average rebate of up to $700. So if you're a homeowner in New Jersey, you could get up to $700 there. And then Universal Basic Income Payment Schedule, applications for $500 direct payments close tomorrow. Actually today, apply now. So this is in Chicago. Applications close today, May 13th. Oh, I didn't even realize it's Friday the 13th. Wow, that's crazy. So yeah, Friday the 13th for 5,000 low-income households. If you know anybody who lives in Chicago, definitely tell them to take advantage of this. This is a really big deal. Applications closed today could get up to $500 per month for an entire year. Yeah, and that is all the news that I have for you today. To hopefully brighten your day a bit, here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day. And now, okay.
This is never mind, sorry. This is about the tip of the day. I'm gonna tell you one thing what you can feel. If you really want something, then be a survivor with some juice. Just kidding. Be a survivor and do whatever you want, because that when someone's here for you, you can always use some help. Anyways. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of your time and support. And happy Friday the 13th. I didn't even realize it was Friday the 13th until a minute ago. But anyways, hopefully you have a great weekend, a great day. If you want to check out any of my other videos, my other channels, you can click up here. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.